Hello and welcome to A Plan for That, a podcast for progressives to stretch their minds and unpack contemporary politics from inside and outside the Democratic Party. My name is Vince. I'm a progressive political activist who works right around the fringes of the establishment here in the Rocky Mountains West. A recovering journalist, I'm here to put my experiences working in the legislative process, both writing policy and influencing public opinion, to help for anyone with energy to get the job done and continue this fight well after November's election. With me, as always, is my energetic co-host, Erin. Erin, how are you?
Hey, Vince. I'm doing good. I am super fired up for change, and I know that you are too. If anyone's been listening to the news today, please put it on a hold and let us give you some hope.
And it has been, I'm really actually kind of happy that we record this on a Tuesday, because sometimes that Monday morning onslaught of news, Erin and I, just for anybody listening, Erin and I just met 2 weeks ago. She reached out to me through a Warren Democrats organizing a mutual connection, and just blind cold called me for a phone call to discuss this idea for a podcast.
Yes, I did. And after Vince and I started talking for, 5 minutes, it felt so effortless and so amazing. And I knew that our energy was exactly what we need to elect an army of progressives. So I said, let's go, Vince.
Hearing the horrifying news, figuring it out together, and not just leaving it at that, okay, I understand now feeling, but how do I actually fix it? Those actionable steps are exactly that. And to illustrate the point, this week, Monday morning, I woke up at my usual time, way too early in the morning, but I like to wake up on East Coast time so I can start watching the horror show unfold live. And I had spent the weekend out here in Colorado. We closed down Colfax Avenue, which is referred to as the longest, wickedest road in North America, from Aurora to Denver. In memory of Elijah McClain and many other people who have been victims of police brutality. It was one of many actions to take place this weekend on the 57th memorial of MLK's famous March on Washington, and I woke up feeling really good because people had shown up in numbers. There was a little bit of turbulence here in Denver. Some white supremacist militias did come down and march in our streets on Friday night, but the rest of the weekend was quiet and reverent, and Sunday was incredibly peaceful and powerful. But my DMs were full of people panicking, all of them on the left, about the need to suspend the protests until Election Day because they were painting the Democrats with a horrible broad brush, and Erin was by no means on the extreme end of canceling the protests, but you were amongst some voices with some concern. What do you want to talk about what you were concerned about?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've noticed, and I almost wish that I didn't, is that all of the people who are really creating violence, and we're talking about the Kyle Rittenhouses, and we're talking about the people that are doing the beatings, and we're talking about the police when they say things to white supremacists like, hey, do you guys need water? We're so glad you're here taking care of what we can't handle ourselves, end quote. It just really worries me for the safety. I in no way want the protests to stop. I do not support that. I think that is the wrong message, not only to the country, but also to the people who we are fighting for as white allies and co-conspirators in the Black Lives Matter movement. I do, however, realize that most of the violence, not all, as Vince helpfully pointed out, is happening after hours, especially in the dead of night. And I start to wonder if it is a little safer to shut down at sunset and make sure that people live to fight another day.
A sincere concern for the safety of the activists, which, thank you. We appreciate it. We love you guys. We love you all. The activists do love that you care about our safety.
It's hard to be a mom and not have that feel for you, Vince. I worry for your safety, and I always will.
And speaking of moms, I'll also shout out to the Denver chapter of the Wall of Moms. Like, the Wall of Moms are a very real organization. They here in Denver, they stand up against the police department, not only for Black lives, but also they realize the revolution is intersectional, and they are out standing up against criminalizing the unhoused and violent sweeps of homeless settlements, and just so much more. So, moms, I really love how much you're stepping up right now. So I took that legitimate Warren Democrat concern for the activists to a group of men who are I'm going to call them Bloomberg Democrats. This group is a good group of humans, but they did ask me directly, can you talk to organizers about suspending protests for the next 67 days? To which I couldn't respond immediately because I giving into the fear of violent recourse and violent consequences is literally fascism, and giving up the fight to hope that we can have a legitimate election because we're scared of far right militias coming from out of town and into our cities and patrolling our streets, claiming that they're going to take back what's theirs. It is a scary time, and this show's all about finding the hope. And the hope here is that there's only 67 more days until these people don't feel empowered anymore, until the president of the United States is not sharing footage of their caravans coming in to terrorize peaceful protesters with paintball bullets and tear gas cannons unlawfully and just criminally in the streets of Portland. We only have a few more months until we get Joe Biden back in the White House and Elizabeth Warren can start making legitimate moves to be Senate Majority Leader, and all of the action in the streets and all of the action for the last couple of weeks won't be for naught. Because we'll be able to put structural change on their desks to sign, and it's going to be super cool.
That's exactly right. And I don't know about you, Vince, but the one thing at top of mind right now for me, just because of all of the senseless violence and killing of unarmed Black members of our society, is going to be to hold Joe to his promise to reform the police and to form that oversight committee that he's talking about, and what are they going to do and when are they going to do it. I am not going to let up for a hot second until we can make sure that the white supremacist infiltration, which can and has actually occurred in various law enforcement areas in the country, is completely eradicated. Nobody like that deserves a badge. That's not who I want walking my streets. That's not who I feel safe being protected by.
Amen. So, progressives, do not panic. Yes, there are agitators who are coming out and creating a lot of disruption right now, but I can't point out enough that the movement for Black Lives hasn't gone anywhere for the last 2 months. The reason that you haven't heard about it is because it's been the peaceful movement and the peaceful protests that it always is. It just hasn't had agitators coming down. You heard about it primarily back in April because the agitators were the police. And now there's been federal injunctions and media pressure for the police to stop their flagrant abuses. And so in the stead of the police, it's now unregulated right-wing militias coming down and brutalizing protesters. That's not the fault of the peaceful movement. The peaceful movement hasn't gone anywhere. You're just hearing about it again because new people are being violent outside of it. Support it. Support the movement. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on Black Lives Matter. There's a number that horrifies me right now is that the national support in April was 78%, and it has fallen to 48%. It's largely along partisan lines, but go talk to your cousin who was sharing memes a couple of months ago and remind him to go share another one. It hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't changed.
That's exactly right. It's not a hashtag. It's action. They're not names that you only say when the media tells you about them. These are names of people who live in our communities and who should be treated with as much equality, as much justice, and as much love as we do all of the citizens of our nation. And until that statement is a reality, I'm not going to stop, and you shouldn't either.
The other crazy thing happening this week is the Red Mirage, which is not the sequel to Red Dawn, unfortunately. And it's not even a Russia hacking thing. It's just that a reminder that land doesn't vote.
I have to say, I'm concerned, and I want to make sure that everybody who hasn't voted yet get to your voting polls. Make sure that you stay healthy, wash your hands. Don't wait for that vote in the mail ballot if it hasn't yet come. It may be necessary for us to go in person. And I'm ready, like that beautiful person said during the MLK speech when he was giving his comments about the Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter movement and Black citizens to the polls. We will crawl. And I'm with you. We will crawl to the polls if we have to.
Red Mirage is the Twitter name or the pundit name for the phenomenon that we are now recognizing that we need to be a little bit afraid of. And simply put, it is the fact that in-person voting is most likely to happen right now amongst the right, because most of the left lives either in blue states that have enabled universal or some form of easy access mail-in balloting, or has gone through the process of obtaining their first ever absentee balloting in light of COVID. So we're voting by mail, which we recognize means our vote probably will not be counted on election day. It'll be counted in the days following election day as it is received. The right, however, not as afraid of COVID because they've created this crazy world where COVID is a partisan issue, not a virus. They are all going to go to the polls en masse and vote that day, enabling President Trump to declare victory on Tuesday night when numbers start to return from in-person voting that indicate that he is winning and well ahead by a large margin, because it will take days, if not weeks, to count mail ballots from likely Democratic states. And by the time that Joe Biden is able to declare his own victory, President Trump will be able to nullify it. Is that scary? Is that scary, Erin?
Yep, that's the theory that you shared with me. And, I hate to get on yet another topic, but I'm going to give a shout out to a guest that we have coming in a couple of weeks to talk about anti-corruption, because we just learned, the whole world, that the postmaster, Louis Joy, is in fact a campaign manager or a PAC fund manager for Mitch McConnell. I don't know how you spell corruption, but for me, that's it. Right there, out in the cold, name it, call it, get it out of office. So when I hear that the Postmaster General is in cahoots in any way with Mitch McConnell, I am very concerned. I'm beyond concerned about what's going on with the postal system and why.
Whew. This is going to be an election that we're going to wait in lines to vote in. This is going to be an election that we need to make sure that we push through until the win. And we need to know how we're going to vote now, because they're going to probably change the rules as we go forward. Because our anti-corruption episode cannot come soon enough, because, do you remember they broke the post office, got caught, and the resolution was, we're not going to break it more, but we're also not going to fix it?
Right. And to that point, Vince, I just have to shout out to the people who are leaders who lead. We had to, and I am not trying to cause trouble. There are people in our Congress who are doing a great job, and there's people that we have to stay on with every single fiber of our being, calling them out, telling them to take action. I believe there was a hashtag called Do Something. So that's what it takes. You guys, spectator sport is not a democracy. We need to get in there, get the skin in the game, and make sure that we're following through with all of the changes and all of the things that we're looking to see in office. We
do. And coming up after this quick break, we're going to bring on our guest, Karen Sung, who is going to help us actualize that do something democracy and show us some of the down ballot state level congressional races that we really need to pay attention to. And also, we're going to discuss abolishing the Electoral College.
It's not as scary as you think.
Growing up in a working class family, I learned pretty quickly that life's not going to hand you anything. You have to work hard every step of the way. But so many politicians in Washington don't know what that's like. And that means everyday Arizonans don't have a voice in their government. I'll work to make healthcare more affordable and to create jobs that you can actually raise a family on. Washington's got too many senators working for somebody else. I'll be working for you. I'm Mark Kelly, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to A Plan for That, where today we're welcoming our ground game expert, Karen Sung, and today she's going to talk with us about the Electoral College, big state power, and what we can do to bring big structural change. Karen is so interested in bringing about progressive change that she works in sustainable energies and wants to keep her eyes on all the races that can help her help pass those policies. Karen, we're so glad you're here. How are you today?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey.
You're so welcome. We're excited. So I just have to start off with this. Then some people really hate the Electoral College. I myself am going to put myself in that basket. And other people are terrified to get rid of it. So I can't wait to get Karen's perspective on what it is, why it's bad, why we should change it, etc. Are you thinking the same way, Vince? What's your thoughts on the matter?
I'm super curious because the Electoral College is something that I was relatively neutral on until about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I went really off the deep end and started diving into how we ended up where we've ended up. And I mean, I'm interested. I really want to learn a lot more, and I have found myself steadfastly in it is definitely time to abolish this horrible, horrible, antiquated system. But I definitely need to arm myself more with the messaging and the rhetoric required to convince my grandmom that we need to do the same and to really have the conversation more intelligently. So I have a lot to learn, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for being on, Karen.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. So the thing about the Electoral College is we use these strong words, abolish the Electoral College. Abolish isn't necessarily the right word for our time because we do need to take incremental steps, because really it's up to the states to pass laws, and states are a little bit slower. But when you're talking to your grandma or you're talking to someone else who isn't familiar with the Electoral College, you might want to use words like reform the Electoral College, because really it's written into the Constitution. It's in Article 2, it's in the 12th Amendment and the 23rd Amendment. We're not getting around it by just saying abolish it. It would take a constitutional amendment, and that takes a lot of time. But states have that power, as we've seen in the 17th Amendment, direct election of senators. 33 states had already introduced direct primaries, because prior to us directly electing our senators, it was up to the state legislature to choose a senator. Then the 19th Amendment, women's right to vote, 27 states had passed it, had legalized a woman's right to vote to certain extents. It varied from state to state. But that allowed for passage of the 19th Amendment. And then besides amendments, we've seen other major cases change federally what states had already undertaken. For example, same-sex marriage was legal in 38 states to some degree before Obergefell v. Hodges was passed. Interracial marriage passed through 34 states before Loving v. Virginia was decided. So this is one of those situations where if it starts in the states, we have the power to change it and eventually maybe make it a constitutional amendment.
I don't know about you, Vince, but that gives me hope, because there's some state races that I know Karen has been watching. And as far as the argument, just to help your grandma and my husband, the argument against the Electoral College almost makes me laugh with Donald Trump as president, because his fear is that if the national popular vote got swindled by someone who was a grand personality but not really qualified, then the Electoral College has to remain to save us. Now let's all just sarcastically laugh and moan as that didn't work this time. So yeah, I think the arguments against changing it really fall short. What do you guys think?
I'm willing to soften the tone to reforming the Electoral College, especially since I was fortunate enough to have a front row seat to that here in Colorado where I live. Just recently when we signed on to the multi-state compact to support the popular vote, which is the state-by-state effort to reform the Electoral College and to put the power of the people back into the individual vote and not into the individual electors. But real quick, before we dive really too far into the policy that it'll take to really change it, can we give our listeners who might not know fully a quick 1 minute look back on what the Electoral College is?
Sure. The Electoral College it's a numbering system. Basically, it's our republic. It's our Republican form of government where every state gets 2 electors, no matter what the population, and then you get a proportion of electors based on your population in a sense of offsetting the vote imbalance for large states and small states. At least that's the argument. In reality, it's not about protecting small states. We see that time and time again, every presidential election, there are only a handful of swing states. In 2016, we only saw 12 states in play. That means 38 states are ignored, bypassing 3 of the country's largest, California, Texas, and New York. Deep red Texas is also disenfranchised, just as much as deep blue California. And as far as small states, 12 of 13 of the smallest states are flyover states. The only one of the smallest states is New Hampshire because of its primaries and because it's kind of contentious. It could be a swing state. So all of that money that goes into campaigning, budgets, field offices, that is invested in New Hampshire, but not in the other 12 smallest states. And if you take a look at the swing states, of the swingy states, they all target the big ones. So actually, even though New Hampshire is kind of swingy, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan are really the targets. And so all of the investment from the other 44 states go into those 6. That's a lot of election funding. That's a lot of federal emergency funding, because guess who has an interest during a re-election year? The incumbent president. Exactly. So the incumbent president is going to direct those federal funds to those 6 states to try to win their support. That's how undemocratic the Electoral College is.
I'm so glad you touched on that, Karen, because that is actually something that myself, before I was awakened and given hope and inspiration by Team Warren and all of the Warren supporters, I used to say, well, Illinois is always blue, so what do I have to worry about? Well, the answer is a lot. State legislatures, judges, county clerks. There's all kinds of races that don't have anything to do with the presidential election, but they have everything to do with your day-to-day life.
Exactly. And those races are usually during low turnout voting periods. And so now that we have a really high voter turnout period, a presidential election, we want to use that to our advantage. So I'm going to highlight some races that will hopefully help flip state legislatures. And if we flip those state legislatures, they may be able to help us pass the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Now, the reason I focus in on these specific states is that they have not yet passed the bill. And we are so close to passing the bill. It started in 2006. We have 16 states signed on. We only need 6 more. Best case scenario, if Texas and Florida flips, maybe we'll only need 2 or 3. But right now, I'm trying to be realistic. And also, I'm trying to plan for worst case scenario. And even with worst case scenario, we only have 8 races.
It'll be such a good surprise when the worst case scenario isn't the one that we need, too. So, and it's all about building plans.
Yes. So, Arizona, Congressional District 6, Arizona 6 can help flip state legislature. Not only that, it's kind of a trifecta. It can help flip state legislature. It can help elect a Democratic senator, so flipping a Senate seat, and it's a swing state. So you get 3 in 1. On top of that, cherry on top, is you also get the chance at passing national popular vote. Georgia's 7th district is very close, it's very narrow, and it's flippable. Georgia is kind of a mess, but they have insane voter turnout now. Gerrymandering is being challenged left and right, and it could be flipped. So I'm really hopeful for Georgia. Georgia 7, Minnesota 1, that's a hold. Minnesota's 1st congressional district is traditionally blue and has a Democratic incumbent, but the vote lead has dwindled over time and now is on the verge of flipping red. So we need to hold that because Minnesota only needs 3 senators to flip in order to control the Senate, the state Senate. That's really
Which number was that? Karen, I'm so sorry. I want to take notes on all of this.
Sure. It's Minnesota 1st congressional district.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. We have North Carolina 8th district. That is Pat Timmons Goodson. She was appointed by President Obama, and Mitch McConnell blocked her confirmation hearing. So now she's running for Congress.
Good for her.
North Carolina 8th is a great district to flip because it just underwent redistricting, and if we flip that district, they pick up 4 state House seats just in one district. You see why I'm focusing in on these federal House seats? Because they have so many tiny state seats within that district. We can swoop up a lot of seats all in one go.
I love it.
Yeah. We have another hold in Maine, 2nd district. We have Pennsylvania, 1st district, and Pennsylvania's 10th congressional district. The last district that I want to mention is just a hold. It's Maine's 2nd district. They only have 2. Their 2nd district is borderline. It's a toss-up from what I've read. And if we can hold it, they have already passed the national popular vote in both houses, both chambers. So we just need the governor to sign it. They will likely pass it again, exactly. And we need to keep the pressure on the governor. What the number 1 race that I think is most important is probably Arizona's 6th. If I could throw more attention on Arizona, this would be the time, because Hiral Tiperneni is a doctor. She has experience now and it will likely be welcome as a COVID expert in Congress. She really can help it because it is a trifecta seat. She can help flip the state and also flip a Senate seat for Mark Kelly.
Excellent, excellent. And we know that we've already been helping Captain Mark Kelly. So that's good to know that we have another person who is of dire consequence with a COVID-19 expert. I mean, hello, we need that right now.
So I'm looking at the map right now, and Arizona's 6 is a large part of the northern part of Maricopa County out there, which includes Phoenix, and it looks like part of Scottsdale and Fountain. So I'm going to call out a name here, Soham Shah. You're going to get a phone call after this recording, because I know that you know some people down there, and we're going to get to work. And meanwhile, Pennsylvania, those districts and my old stomping grounds, because you know, those are the ones that I think are going to be the most important. The first is just north of Philadelphia in Bucks County. That is an area that borders on Jersey and definitely should be blue. We don't want to lose that one, especially if the GOP is targeting it. And way over in central PA, it earns the moniker of Pennsyltucky. The 10th is Dauphin County. And let's really fight against that redneck rhetoric about central Pennsylvania by keeping our districts blue in the blue wave here, building that army of progressives.
Excellent. I love it. I'm excited to do it. And I know that if Karen will just give our readers and our listeners a shout out of how to contact her on Twitter, look at that pinned tweet. And of course, Vince, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be sending that tweet around and I hope that it's going to go viral.
Thanks. My contact is just Karen Sung, KarinSung _. You can find me on Twitter, and all of the districts that I mentioned today are posted there in a pinned tweet. Pennsylvania is, because it's a swing state and because it's hotly contested, I really want to give a shout out also, because I didn't say her name earlier. Pennsylvania one needs a special shout out for Christina Finello. It's a hotly contested seat and a lot of eyes are on that one.
I like this idea that states are the laboratory of democracy and states are really where change begins. So we know where we need to go have the fight. What's the fight that we're really having, though? What are we bringing to them when we get there?
So these states specifically have introduced the national popular vote time and time again and are the most likely to pass it. They've either passed it in one house historically or have passed it in two. Some states I didn't mention earlier because we don't need to flip any seats are Virginia and Nevada. Nevada passed both houses and then it got vetoed. Virginia, it passed one house and then it just got stayed in the other one. They're waiting until 2021.
This is suddenly blue Virginia, right? I thought this wasn't even a swing state anymore. I thought it was solid R's. What are they doing?
Exactly. I'm not worried about Virginia. I know they'll have the turnout. They will go blue. They will stay blue. But they just passed the Equal Rights Amendment. They just ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, which is huge. And they have not passed the national popular vote. What's going on, Virginia?
Everybody out there on the East Coast, call your lawmakers and remind them to help pass the popular vote and that we care about it, make it an issue, and they'll make it an issue.
So I have a question, and I'm only doing this as a devil's advocate so that I can know how to speak to people like my husband and others who are hesitant. Could you give me a synopsis of the elevator speech for why this is so important and why it is not dangerous?
It's really important because we've already seen two presidents win the Electoral College but lose the popular vote. Neither of them were popular presidents. They were George W. Bush and now Donald Trump. This became a really big issue in 2016 because we're now realizing we are under the tyranny of the minority. The whole point of the Electoral College was to avoid tyranny of the majority, but now tyranny of the minority gives us a fascist state. Why it's not a danger is that historically the popular vote has gone the way of popular opinion, and popular opinion is how we rule and how we push agendas forward through the states, not necessarily in the federal government. The federal government doesn't really care what people think. I've noticed.
No, they don't.
It's also not dangerous because there are so many checks and they are still built into the Constitution. How states want to change this, they can even withdraw from the compact, but they must give 18 months notice. There are all these additional checks and protections around it to make sure that it's not a runaway system, but that it does inspire people to vote. If everyone's vote counts towards whoever wins, don't you think more people will participate? And that's kind of the whole point, right?
Absolutely. I'm sold. How about you, Vince?
Yeah, I mean, I am never one to argue against enfranchising voters in any way, and I have to say that I'm going to give it away. I'm 31 years old, and in my lifetime, I've only known one president who, for both of his terms, won the popular vote both times, and that was Barack Obama. In my lifetime, I've watched two presidencies be stolen by the people and who were the rightful winners, and that is what finally pushed me over. Was cool. I was in middle school, and I watched it happen to Gore. And then I was finally a 30-something adult, and I watched it happen to Hillary, and I don't want to watch it happen to another person that I fight hard for. And so, it seems very reasonable that in a democracy, the most wins. Like, that's That seems reasonable to me.
So in agreement. And I think that one of the most important things that everyone should remember is that the only way that change comes is with our voices. And the only way our voices can get heard is to start small and build the grassroots army of progressives. Karen, please tell us how we can do it.
We can build an army of progressives using this initial tool. If we can change the Electoral College, then we can excite voters in 2024 and beyond and really pave a way for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. We haven't seen any excitement in the progressive wing in 2016 or now because our nominee doesn't really excite the left and the far left. It really excites the centrists. By starting with the national popular vote, we really do make a gateway for this. And what's really exciting is that we don't have to worry about third parties taking away from what could be the best candidate. We can also establish ranked choice voting so that we can vote for who we want for president, right? Not just who is most electable.
So these are such huge things to move forward on. And with these races, I mean, yes, we call them small, but let's think about them as the legs of the table because, boy, it's going to give us a base to grow, right?
Exactly. Some of these candidates aren't the most progressive, and I have to apologize to the army of progressives if they're not for you 100%, but they are mechanisms. They are essential in getting us to a more progressive future. That's why I'm trying to push these specific candidates so much.
Absolutely. I mean, earlier in the episode, we were talking about how I was organizing for John Hickenlooper here in Colorado, who was certainly not the progressive candidate during the primary, but is definitely the person we need to be in the Senate for us. So it's all about those small steps that it takes to build the people into the position of power that we need them in, for sure. Karen, where do people find you on Twitter, and how does everybody keep in touch on you? And then also, very, very most importantly, who or what should everybody who is listening send $5 to this week? Where are we sending our supporting money?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is KARINSUNG_. And everyone should donate $5 to Hiral Tiperneni. She is in Arizona's 6th district. That's just outside of Phoenix, includes some of Phoenix, Arizona. Keep an eye out for her because she's going to help flip the Senate, help flip the state even, and flip the state legislature. That's the most exciting part.
And she's in Act Blue, so it's really easy to give your money right over to her. You don't even have to sign up for anything new, everybody. Good news, just checked.
Love it when she makes it easy.
And why not make it a monthly donation? Come on, that's what I'm going to do.
Yes. There are only a few months left, really. There's only 2 months. So if you make it a monthly donation, just think how easy that is.
Yay, hooray. Karen, thank you so much for joining us this week. We're definitely going to have you back on. When we get the newsletter set up, we're going to ask you to try to lean in on your list of 8 and give our listeners and our audience an update on everything going on. It was so much fun. Thank you.
I had so much fun. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Erin.
I believe Joe is right when he says that this election is a fight for the soul of America. I do believe this is an inflection moment in the history of our country. This is a moment in time where we have to look in a mirror and ask ourselves, who are we? And I think we all know we are better than this. The strength of who we are as a nation has always been about fighting for our ideals. We will elect Joe Biden as the next president of the United States.
That was so much fun. I have been looking forward to talking to Karen since you introduced me on Twitter a couple of weeks ago to her, and I learned a lot, and I have a lot more to learn. Of the 8 races, which one are you going to adopt? What are you thinking is the most important one, Erin?
You know, I'll have to kind of side with Karen on Dr. Hiral because I really just think that having someone in a state's seat that knows about COVID-19 is going to be so important. I mean, we need someone like this now. Let's be honest. So that's the one I've got my eyes on, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to spread my money like sunshine all throughout these races.
You know what? And what I absolutely admire about you already and getting to know you is that it's not just your money that you're going to spread out. You're going to send efforts to Arizona. In fact, I want to do a little bit of an accountability check-in, because we build a plan for that on a plan for that, and it's all about putting action into our words and not just offering platitudes. And so what we do every week when we're off mic is probably more important than what we do every week when we're on mic. So what did you do this week out of state to help elect a progressive?
Yes, I was super excited this week, and I did a lot, but it was fun. And that is why I go ahead and put in the work, because it's fun, you meet people, and most importantly, you get progressive back in power. So I made phone calls for Ed Markey.
Yeah,
I made phone calls.
Sorry. So you made calls for Markey this week. How was that?
It was wonderful. I made over 60 some odd phone calls in one sitting. And I only had one person that said, nope, not going to vote for him. So the Ed Markey energy is real, y'all.
All right. So you made calls for Ed Markey. I marched and I organized for Black Lives.
I also did phone calls for Robbie Goldstein, Robbie for Change. Okay. He's also in Massachusetts, down ballot, not the Senate. And he has a progressive platform. He is looking to bring the same big structural fund that we're trying to build over here on a plan for that. And lastly, I texted like a demon all day, every day for Reverend Warnock in Georgia. There is some big excitement over there, Vince.
You inspire me so much with how much out-of-state action that you take. And just, I mean, both Karen this week, I love how, I mean, we need more progressives. We need more Democrats to care about not their just backyard. If we're going to be a big tent, then we need to care about where the stakes are laid, which means we need to care about Georgia. We need to care about Kentucky. We need to care about Massachusetts and putting our people in office. And it is so cool how you do. I got to say, I'm inspired by it. It's rad.
Thank you, Vince. I wish I would have known you way back when, because back in 2017, when I was wondering, who can I call? I have Democratic senators that are sane. I don't know what to do. Now we have a plan for that.
We do. And our plan for that is to support progressive candidates up and down the ballot, progressive ballot initiatives. We want to teach people civic lessons. We want to teach people how our process works.
I am so with you on this, Vince. Not only that, I just want to add a tiny little tag that no one ever wins by getting on stage. Yes, I'm talking to you, my favorite quoter, Elizabeth Warren. Nobody wins by getting on stage and talking about what we really can't do and what we really shouldn't even try for.
And real quick, just for next week, thank you so much for joining us this week. Shout out to our guest, Karen Sung. Last week, it was Calico Castillo, founder of Thunderstorm Strategies. Make sure that you subscribe right now and never, ever, ever miss an episode, because it's been dope so far, but it's only still somehow going to get better from here. Next week,
it is actually anti-corruption. We have Justin coming to talk with us, and he has a whole array of things that he can discuss, from corruption in our electeds, big money, foreign money. I think foreign money has played quite a role in our current administration, and how dangerous things like this are. And the action that progressives can take, of course, is donating to candidates, donating to candidates who aren't in the hands of big money, who aren't in the hands of foreign money, and who are speaking out and truthfully as members who will listen only to the people, only to their issues, and get elected in office, putting those people in power.
I love it. I can't wait. I can't talk. I'll see you all on Twitter. I'm angrier there. Follow me at Vinny Chant. Until next week. slide into my DMs because I need an outlet because we can't only do this once a week.
Amen. See you then, Vin.